Welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque, where we meet some of the important faces involved with films that tackle aspects of the Jewish experience. Today, I am joined by Israeli writer-director Morris Ben-Mayor, whose documentary film Hamalka Shoshanna, Queen Shoshanna, is being screened at film festivals around the world. This is the third film for Morris, whose previous biopics looked at the life and work of performer Yossi Banai and the Farag photography family. Queen Shoshana is a mesmerizing study of vocalist Shoshana Damari, who was born in Yemen and immigrated to Israel as a 2-year-old and died there at age 83 in the year 2006. Shoshana was often referred to as the Queen of Israeli music. The film explores her rise to fame, her life as an international star, and career choices made. And yes, we are indeed treated to snippets from her incredible music career in this fascinating and truly eye-opening film study.
ערב טוב לכם. אנחנו שמחים להזמין אתכם לבלות שעה קלה בחברת המלכה.
הגברת הראשונה של הזמר העברי, שושנה דמארי.
תמיד שואלים אותי איך אני מרגישה בתור מלכה, אני אומרת, למה שיש בארצות אחרות מלך או מלכה? מגיע גם לנו שתהיה איזו מלכה.
Israel's most successful and established export to the outside world has been an exotic, dynamic singer by the name of Shoshana Damari.
בארצות הברית היו לי ידידים מהגוורדיה הגבוהה.
There was Shoshana, Nina Simone, Danny Kaye, and Nat King Cole. So that was already a close group.
לכבוד אמא המתוקה, אני מתגעגעת אלייך מאוד ורוצה לראותך.
נאוה מחכה לאמא. גם אבא מחכה לאמא, אחרי אשר נעדרה למעלה משנתיים בישראל וקצרה אחות בארצות הברית.
Can you be a real mother to your daughter, traveling so much, being away from home?
I am.
פמיניסטית, לפני שבכלל ידעו להגדיר את המושג הזה, פמיניזם.
This was the most painful thing in her life, that daughter. She couldn't deal with it.
כתבתי מכתב חריף מאוד לשושנה, ובו הודעתי לה שאינני נפרד ממנה, ולהוסיף לראותה לעולם.
שושנה דמארי, זה פרשה. אני הייתי קשור בה, היא לקחה אותי, היא קרבה אותי, ואני אהבתי את זה.
לפעמים שרתי רק לשני בחורים, ממוצב למוצב. מכל מקום לקחתי כ-200 מספרי טלפון, וטלפנתי להורים. הבן שלכם בסדר.
היא הייתה אחת מהזמרות היחידות בעולם שהופיעה בקרנגי הול ללא הגברה.
אני אישה קשה. זאת אומרת, יש לי כוחות על אנושיים.
מלכה שהממלכה פתאום נשמטה מרגליה. אבל היא עדיין המלכה.
כלניות מטוללות, חינניות.
So Morris, welcome to Cinémathèque. It's lovely to have you with me. Morris, tell me, why did you decide to make this film about Shoshana Damari?
Well, actually, we started working on this film something like 3-something years ago, while we were working on our previous film about Yossi Banai. And during that time, actually, the answer is very prosaic, because the manager of the broadcasting, how do you call it, the broadcasters, they asked us, listen, we see that you make a really lovely movie about Yossi Banai. Why don't you make a movie about Shoshana Damari? And immediately we started researching. And the first thing we found out about Shoshana Damari, that there was never a documentary about her.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's crazy. It's crazy. she was like, I don't have to mention it, but she was like the greatest Israeli female singer ever, the greatest diva. And there was never a movie about her. And actually, this was what pushed us, our curiosity. How come? How come there was never a movie about her?
You know, it's interesting. In the film, you take a very unique approach to, in fact, unpacking her life story by starting out with the unpacking of these crates that were found. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I've never really seen that in a film, and wow, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, because also for us as directors of documentary films, it's like something that you would never expect that you'll come to. Excuse me, I'm a little bit, moved. So, from the
as is anyone who watches the film.
Yeah. So the thing is that just in the beginning, when we just started researching, we found out about this inheritance that she left behind that was locked in those 2 crates somewhere in a warehouse in Kibbutz Yakum. After she died, the family took all her belongings and put them in a crate, and that's it. And we found members of the family, and we talked to them about it. We didn't know about this inheritance. We just talked about the film, and they told us, listen, we have those 2 crates with all her belongings. So actually, you're asking us to collaborate with a lot of information that might be in those 2 crates. So next thing, we just asked, can we approach those 2 crates of her belongings? And they told us, yes, in one condition, that there will be some kind of museum or archive institute that will take care and watch. We're not just opening it like that. You should be supervised. And that's what happened, actually, where we connected the family with Rishon LeZion Museum. Rishon LeZion is the name of the city where Shoshana Damari grew up in. And they took it and they supervised it. And there's going to be even a permanent show of her belongings in the Rishon LeZion Museum in a year or 2.
What kind of things did you find in there?
And that's it. I just wanted to tell you about this moment that we opened those crates. On one hand, we felt so lucky and so overwhelmed from actually opening her belongings, everything. And it's a big gift for a documentary director. On the other hand, we felt a little bit unpleasant. We felt that we are opening someone's private life. I mean, her sleepers, her pajamas, her private photos, letters, diaries, the small cassettes of her answering machine from the 80s through the 90s, everything she kept, and even her bills. So we understood at that moment that we have to draw an unseen line, an invisible line that we shouldn't cross. We have to keep Shoshana's and actually the whole family's dignity, and we shouldn't cross this line. So this was our first conflict as directors and makers of documentary. You
really want to go at the good stuff, and indeed you were careful, but you did get into some very heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Her relationship with her husband, her relationship with her co-creator Moshe Valinsky,
yes, I
her
agree.
relationship with her daughter. So but at the same time, you had to make tough choices. What's fascinating, Morris, is that as we learn about Shoshana, she was a child who almost was left behind when her family sailed from Yemen to literally walked to Aden, and then they sailed to Palestine. But she was sick, and they didn't want to take her on board, and they leave her behind, and so from there on in, she's sort of like the left behind child. So what happens? How does she sort of move in, and eventually she sings with her mom? Can you just tell us a little bit about her early life?
Yes, of course. But actually, I think she's a wonder in any aspect that you look at her, because all her life began, all her life, how do you say it, prospects or aspects in the beginning, she didn't have a chance. She was a poor Yemenite girl in I think there were 7 in the family or 6 kids, poor, coming to Palestine, and
from Yemen to Ashkenazi Palestine,
to Rishon LeZion,
1920s.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, and she didn't have a chance. If you would tell me all this, she wouldn't have a chance to become anybody. And that's where her personality gets in. I think she was a very unique child, and she got spotted early by her elder brother, Saadia, that saw that she was very talented. She had a great voice since childhood, and she accompanied her mother in those kina songs, these funeral songs, or how do you say kina?
Morning song. She would go into cemeteries and sing these songs with her mom?
Yeah. And she used to say in interviews that I remember I went with my mother to cemeteries and to other joys, to other joys of life. And she accompanied her mom, and they sang together. And by what she's telling, her mother had a even greater voice than hers. And but the thing is, I think it's at the end of it, it's a thing of personality. She was something else, and when you look at her photos as a kid, as a young girl, you see her stubbornness, you see the character, you see a wild child with a great personality and gift.
And yet she had to conform. She gets married, at age 16?
We don't really know, actually. It might be even earlier. We know that he waited for her, Shlomo, the man who actually married her. I know that he saw her, he spotted her when she was like 13, 14.
He was much older than she was.
Much older, like 20-something years, I think, close to 25 years older. And he was already in some kind of show business. He had this group, this theater group called Shulamit, which was a folklore Israeli Yemenite group. He spotted her. I think he just fell in love with her immediately. And we show it in the movie from his diaries, some kind of poem or prose in his diary that he describes how he falls in love with this rose in the garden.
So here she is. I mean, the story, as you unpack it, literally by showing her dresses and unpacking her life, is just incredible. All the odds are against her. She's Yemenite in an Ashkenazi world, and yet she rises and rises and rises. And then at a certain point, the question is family, wife, mother, or career. What happened?
Yeah, I think there's no question here, because she was born to be on stage. She was born on stage, and you could say she died on stage in a way. She's one of those stories that we know other stories like that, but she belonged to the stage. So for her, I believe, that's my own interpretation. I believe that she had no other chance. She had no other path she could walk in. And so there was no question about it. And when there's no question about it, one has to pay the price, knowingly that she pays the price. On the other hand, I believe that she was a good mother, and she was also a good wife, because if we look at the facts, she did anything she could to bring this family together again after all those years of touring around the world when she was still younger.
So by the time we get to the creation of the state, by this time she is the singer. Then she picks herself up and she leaves, and she tours, and she leaves back and forth for what, close to 20 years?
No, it's not really 20 years. I think it's more like a decade.
Okay. A lot of that time in New York City.
A lot of that in New York City.
And leaving behind her husband and daughter, who only stays with her, what, 1 or 2 of those years?
Yeah, but there was a time of something like 3 years of her life that her daughter came to New York, being with her, and she studied there in an art school. She was an involved mother. That's to some level, you know. I understand, but what you're going to, where you're going to. But I must say something. I think that Shoshana, at the times we are in right now, and we're talking about strong women, and being a proud woman with her choices, with her proud choices. I think she did that many years ago. If we look at her career of this woman, we find out that there was no man managing her. The story of Shlomo, her husband, that discovered her, is a very early story. It's like My Fair Lady. It's like Professor Higgins and Liza Doolittle. From that point on, she became by herself. She made herself a diva. No one really managed her, no males around, and that's something, you know,
pretty impressive,
that I really respect. Pretty amazing, and I really respect that.
And yet you chose in the film to include clips. At one point, I think she's asked directly, what's more important, your career or your family? And she says, my career. And what a career.
Yeah.
But let me just sort of talk a little bit about and ask you about this period around the birth of the state in 1948. She, in effect, becomes Israel's ambassador. What, she goes to displaced persons camps in Europe? Here she is, a Yemenite singer who sings in Arabic or in Hebrew, and she goes to the DP camp.
In Yiddish.
And she sings what? Raisins and almonds. Crazy.
Yeah, that's really crazy. But that's about this couple of her and Moshe Wilensky.
Can you talk about?
Yes, actually, we can say we can put a title on this, which is a power couple. What we call a power couple. They met, and immediately she was asked by another theater manager, who do you want to write for you? And she spotted Moshe Wilensky in a cafe theater playing his piano, and she told this manager, I want him. I think he's talented. And from that point on, a glorious career of both of them. And I think that she gave to Moshe Wilensky the same as Moshe Wilensky gave her, you know, she made him the same as he made her. And Moshe Wilensky became Yemenite in a way, even in his music. And Shoshana Damari became a Polish girl, on the other hand. So she learned this Yiddish from him, and he learned this Yemenite from her. And it was a perfect combination of the new Israeli, the newborn Israeli. I wish it was like that now.
The kibbutz galuyot kind of thing, right?
Yeah, the perfect kibbutz galuyot, perfect kibbutz galuyot. She even tells us in an interview that when her father first listened to Moshe Wilensky's music.
Compositions,
Yeah, compositions. For some of them, he told her, this is from home. This is a Yemenite music. I know this song. And she told him, no, this is Moshe's new composition right now you're listening to. So I think he absorbed her and she absorbed him. And that's...
It certainly was an incredible fusion of Eastern and Western music. And by the way, at the very beginning, when she starts out with Wilensky, who is writing some of these incredible songs? I mean, she has Natan Alderman, and Wilensky. This power couple, lyrics and composition, and Shoshana singing them, and those songs endure to this day. The song that she became most connected with was Kalaniot.
Kalaniot, ornaments.
The whole notion of how do we translate kaloniot? I guess anemones.
Anemones. Anemones.
Or poppies or whatever, but these gorgeous red flowers that some say was even political and maybe even anti-British when it was written in 1945, but that's for another subject.
That's a mythology. It's not true, actually. The British took it like, the British mandate. They just interpreted it like a criticism because they had those red berets. So,
although there were stories of when the British soldiers would walk into a cafe, the Israelis would break out into song and sing kaloniot. But anyway, that's she goes off with Wilensky to New York. And they are together for many years. And Shlomo, by the way, Shlomo stays married to her entire life, his entire life.
Her entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his entire life.
You do touch on that special connection that she had with Wilensky. And then at a particular moment in time, it ends. What happened? What happened?
I think it was, again, it's our interpretation of the things because we don't know for sure anything. I think that what happened there, that this was a very intense relationship, working together, touring together, her wild personality and very strong personality. I think that his personality was a little bit timid and he wasn't as strong and wild and flamboyant as she was. And she was a very kind of demanding person, I think. And she wouldn't allow him to write compositions for other singers. He even says it in his own voice in the film from an interview that luckily I don't know how he found it. It's
incredible that you found it. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he says it in his own voice that there were times that he felt really frustrated that no one even gave him a credit for it. And I think, and also, if we might guess, there were other things, like their private relationship, I believe, but we don't know anything for sure. And that's why actually we were not, in any point of the movie, we are not certain and we're not saying, we're not defining anything. We're not saying she had an affair with him. It's suggested. And also at the same, I could say that about her husband or about her daughter and the relationship. We were trying not to be judgmental, not to be total about anything. We kept things in this fog that we were in. And actually, the most important thing for us as the creators of this movie to say about it is that when we approached Shoshana, we found a closed box, like literally. A riddle.
But literally a closed box. Yes.
Yeah. And at the end of it, this box might have been opened a little bit, but just a little bit. It's still a closed box. It's still a riddle, and and that's the truth. So we stick to the truth.
You clearly opened the box a little bit. One of the things that comes out as you open it a little bit is her relationship with her daughter. Her daughter picks herself up. I mean, they're together, they're not together. And then at the end of her life, her daughter picks herself up and leaves and goes to Canada, really until the very day that Shoshana dies.
Yes.
And you leave that open and we sort of feel what was wrong there and was something wrong? And in fact, you even tempt us, you tease us by listening to this daughter Nava singing, and she has the power of the voice of her mother, and yet she never takes on and follows through and sees that as her career. And this beautiful moment when there is Shoshana Damari at a memorial service, literally the coffin on the stage of the Camry Theater in Tel Aviv, and Nava sings for her. So what was that all about, Boris?
Yes. Wow. As I said before, we opened just a little, just a little bit of, how do you call this thing, a margin or what to look through. And the truth is that even the family, the close family, don't know what happened with Nava when she left and what happened with Nava in Canada for 20 years. What we do know is that they spoke on the phone twice a day.
Wow.
In the morning and in the evening, every single day. And we do know from her close friends, of Shoshanna's close friends, and that those conversations were full of love and full of problems, full of complexities from the past. We don't know much more. We know that Shoshana and loved her daughter very much. She was worried about her all the time. But there is no one to tell. There is no one left actually to tell us about the real Nava or what happened with the real Nava.
Right. She died just a few years later. She died just a few years later.
Yeah, she died like 5 years later, I think.
So sad. A young woman.
So sad. Yeah. And she had no family, actually. She was never married or kids, or it's kind of a sad story, but I don't blame Shoshana for that. And I don't blame Nava for that. I don't know if we should blame anyone. You know, life happens and people make choices, and I don't know where to put my own self inside this story, apart from saying that it is a sad story.
Towards the end of her life, first of all, in the 50s, there were some issues. Here she was, a Yemenite singer, and there were some in the Mizrahi Sephardi community who said, "You're not doing enough for us." She does take part in a film, Homeland. The other piece of this is that you do show that she even played with a short career, potentially as an actor. She's in Hill 24 Doesn't Answer. She's in this film Homeland about a Yemenite Jewry, but some say she didn't speak up enough on behalf of the Yemenite community. Late in her life, she becomes almost like a recluse. She sort of, her career is pretty much, she's an old lady, she's not respected anymore. Yes, her songs are still sung, but and then she connects with Idan Reichel and Boaz Sharabi and to some extent Mati Kaspi. It's like it's crazy, and to watch it in the film and to see how she comes alive in her late 70s and early 80s, to sort of like, it's like a new career for her. And and Reichel loves her, and she loves Reichel. And the very fact that she would work with a guy, a young guy who's doing sort of very different kind of music. Just talk about what that did for her from what you were able to see. And you convey this in the film beautifully.
Yeah, so thank you. But what I think is that, first of all, her later stardom is showing us that the title Queen Shoshana is the right title for her, because I don't know many artists that can be forgotten for a long time and then emerge again and be as grand as they were before. That takes a lot of talent and star quality, and I believe that those young people that started working with her in her later years, I don't think that they made her again. I think that she helped them because she was so amazing, really. When you see a woman at the age of 70-something, like that, standing on stage and producing this grand vocal that she had, this grand voice she had, and also her presentation, the way she stands on stage. She's already a 70-something-year-old lady, and she's as beautiful as ever. Amazing, sexy, even sexy. By the way, you spoke about her acting career, and there is a part in the movie that an American interviewer asks her, "You are described as the Israeli Ava Gardner." And when you look at her features, when you look at her face, and by the way, she was very short. We tell it in the movie. She was like a meter and something. She was really small. And in the memory and recollection of every Israeli, she's grand. She's very tall. She's a big woman. I think that also about this aspect of Idan Reichel, which you asked me about. There is something in her story that I tell myself again, my own interpretation, that is similar to the movie Sunset Boulevard. There is some qualities in her story that connects with Sunset Boulevard, this long gone, forgotten diva. And there's this young man coming and she falls in love with him. Gloria Swanson, and as what was her name? Anyway, there's this story there that I like to tell it like in Hollywood, as a Hollywood movie, and that's actually why there are many Hollywood aspects in the movie we made, like the soundtrack that Jonathan Bar-Giora wrote for the movie.
Which
the whole vibe.
Which actually you can watch on YouTube with the full orchestra. It's beautiful.
With a full orchestra. We recorded it with the Jerusalem Philharmonic Orchestra, 60 players on stage. Pretty amazing, actually. We never imagined that we'll go that far, you know.
The film is Hamalka Shoshana, Queen Shoshanna. It's an incredible story with musical extracts, you know, Shoshana singing Kalaniot, Shoshana singing Hora Mamtera, and so on and so forth. I mean, if you are an Israeli folk dancer, I'm sure you've danced to Hora Mamtera with Shoshana singing. It's a beautiful film. I encourage all of you to seek it out. And Morris, thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations.
Thank you, Eric.
On a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.